Namaste, everyone. I welcome you all to today's guest talk titled Simple Hacks for Mental Well-Being. Our guest speaker today is Richa Sharma. I would like to share a quick introduction for her. Richa is a mental health professional with decade-long experience working with adolescents and young adults. She's also a professional musician and has collaborated with renowned global artists in the music industry. She, she presently leads a band named Muktiverse. Richa loves reading books on wisdom and spirituality. We welcome you, Richa. Thank you so much for joining us today and look forward to an interesting session with you. Over to you.
Thank you, Arunima, for a very warm introduction. Good evening and namaskar, everyone here. I'm very pleased, honored, blessed, and delighted to be able to share this space with all of you and share a quick wisdom on mental health with you today. As a disclaimer, I'd like to say that mental well being or mental health is a very broad spectrum, and it's not possible to quickly tailor something which is so huge and so diverse as mental health and well-being, and compress it into a 30-minute or a 40-minute session. However, I have tried to integrate some very common sense wisdom which we have heard time and again, that all of us almost even know about. We are all very familiar. All the things that I'm going to say are very, very familiar things, but this session can serve as a reminder to all of us that, okay, this is where I was lacking right now, and maybe I can imbibe or incorporate this aspect in my life henceforth. So without taking much of your time, I welcome you into this session, and I hope that you find some nice takeaways. I just wanted to quickly check, are you able to see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So when we talk about mental health or well-being, it's important for us to understand what do we mean by well-being, right? And you all might have your own individual description of what well-being might mean for you. But I did explore, in an experiential exercise with a group last month. I asked the participants to close their eyes and imagine their best self, and a space where they feel a high sense of well-being and happiness. And it's not surprising that almost each one of them mentioned some proximity to, mentioned some common aspects that we'll be talking about here. And so almost all of us have a very common understanding of well-being. We all feel that we would love to be loved, we'd love to express our feelings and affection to people around us, that we are able to handle the stresses or daily hassles that life throws at us, that we're able to adapt to the demands and challenges of environment. We can learn and evolve. All of these things imply mental well-being. It's also important to understand that if we follow these practices consistently on a regular basis, on a very conscious basis, we can come to a stage where we promote well-being and we are able to prevent the onset of anxiety or depression or severe stress, and that we do not come to a point where we need to cure those areas. So it's ideal to have a lifestyle that promote positive well-being and to have practices incorporated into our daily routine, weekly routine, monthly or yearly routine as a practice. Also, it's interesting that after the COVID, after the pandemic, it's kind of unfortunate because we realized it quite late. We did not need a pandemic to remind us that mental health and well-being is so essential to us. but better late than never. The pandemic made all of us realize the importance of mental health, and the WHO has mentioned mental health and well-being as a global priority for each and every individual. So I would like to come back into the session and see if any of you have anything to add over here. Is there any aspect that you would like to bring here, what well-being means to you? Feel free to use the chat box, and maybe later in the Q&A session we can take those insights and we can uh, talk about that, we can discuss that part. Okay, so I hope you are, and the intention to come back to the session was also to check if all of you are with me. So yes, I think you all are here with me. Let's proceed. So in the yes courses, if many of you already are taking up yes courses, and we are in the fourth course right now, and we've been learning a lot about hormones and emotions and the physiological functions in our body, and I'm not going into the detail of it, but it's important for us to understand that our physiology and our psychology cannot be separated from each other. They are very much connected, and there are several theories in psychology which tell us that our physiological arousal is triggered by the onset of seeing a certain stimulus, and by feeling a certain emotion. Just for instance, if I tell you right now there's a snake lying near you, how does that feel? We'll come to a stage of alarm, right? Or we'll have palpitations, and of course it's it's just a hypothetical situation, and it best stay there itself. But any kind of triggering situation, the moment we begin to imagine it, it elicits some physiological responses in our body. Consider for instance a phone call of an unpleasant person, so and you'll suddenly have your heart beat faster. Or if you hear that tomorrow you have a particular test, or you have to give a presentation that you're not prepared for, all of these can trigger certain emotions inside you, which can have physiological manifestations, right? So here what I'm trying to share here is that when we feel certain emotions, our body secretes certain hormones or neurotransmitters, and it's also vice versa. you know Pharmacology or medication, when it regulates certain hormones in our body, that can also affect our emotions. Okay, so it's a two-way process. Just for instance, when we feel happy, loved, healthy, our body secretes happy hormones, or love hormones. These are given very fancy names, but some of the common ones of these are serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin. We'll be talking about these gradually as we move. And the intention is to have practices that enhance or nourish these emotions. Of course, not to overdo anything, to have it in moderation and balance so that we can enjoy their effects. And when we feel discomfort or stress or any kind of uneasiness, for instance that snake trigger, or a phone call, or an exam the next day, or having to give a speech in public. By the way, public speaking is rated as a number one cause of fear among people, and it surpasses death. Death comes in the number two, and public speaking is the number one fear inducing phenomenon among people. So when we feel discomfort, our body secretes certain hormones, just to trigger certain behavior. So the most common one of these is the cortisol, which is called the stress hormone, and a few more. So here we're not going to talk a lot about physiology and hormones, but that was just to give you a small background. But right now, what we're going to discuss here is just small little things around us every day, just the kind of fabric or the texture of fabric that we are wearing right now, the kind of shoes that we wear every day, the colors that we have on the walls in our room, the ambience around us, how much clutter or how much of minimal space, minimalism or space that we have, nature around us, ventilation, what's the kind of content that we are consuming every day through social media, or through the people that we connect with, our food habits. and of course our relationships. All of these can have very positive influence on our mental well-being, and vice versa. They can have adverse effect on our mental well-being as well. So we are talking about positive practices right now, and in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has mentioned a lot about our senses, the indriyas in our body. So the most common one are the five senses, you know, the visual and tactile, auditory, olfactory, the sense of smell, and gustatory, the sense of our taste. So whatever we see or touch or hear or smell or taste, every day we consume so much of the world around us using these sense organs. And it is these sense organs that can lead, they are the root to addictive practices or damaging practices or very healthy practices, healthy behavior. So what if I ask you to consider, imagine watching a very sensationalizing web series versus sitting in a park and looking at the greenery around yourself. What do you enjoy more? Of course, the web series might give you a temporary high at that moment, but at the end of it, you begin feeling like a zombie because you just can't stop watching it, and it takes a toll on your health. So that was your visual stimuli. You make a choice of seeing what you want to see using that sense. Similarly, the kind of fabric or the kind of sparsh or touch that we can have on our body. So wearing more natural fabrics gives us a sense of positivity versus wearing a nylon fabric or a high pointed heel. Okay, high pointed heels look very fashionable and they look very aesthetic probably, but to the person who's wearing it, probably it might be very uneasy beyond a certain point of time. Again, coming to the auditory stimuli, listen to rock music or listen to nature sounds, the sounds of water flowing or the birds chirping outside your balcony, or listening to organic instruments, the sound of flute or sitar. And we are not judging that this is a bad sound or this is a good sound. We're just trying to discern that these are various kind of sounds, and we have a choice through our sense organs to enjoy listening to, any of these that we enjoy more. Using our sense of smell, it's very simple to guess whether do we enjoy the smell of fumes or smoke or the rose garden. Of course, I think all of us prefer smelling the rose garden more. And using the sense of taste, the gustatory sensation, um, what kind of taste do we enjoy in our mouth? Of course, fresh foods, freshly cooked home food, warm food tastes way better than, stale food. Junk food might taste better, but the effect it has on a long term basis, um, could be very devastating to our body long term over a consistent period of time. I'll come back to the session just to check if you all are here with me and if I'm making sense so far. Okay, just a second. Yeah. So here is a very small, very interesting technique that that psychology or mindfulness, anyone who is practicing mindfulness might be aware of this technique. But using your sense organs, you can try doing this technique and it can instantly help you um, come into this present moment. And this technique is called the 5 4 3 2 1 technique, or a 5 sense meditation. It's a technique of grounding, and it helps you be more centered, and it helps you come back into this moment. So very quickly, we'll just try doing this on our own, and I'm not going to ask for any feedback, but let's just try doing this in our respective rooms. So what do we do here is, we are now aware of all the sense organs that we have, and it's mentioned out here also. So we start picking up various stimuli using each of these sense organs. Okay, so on 5, our visual stimuli. So we can mention 5 things that we can see here in this room right now. Okay, so if I look into my room here right now, I can see a calendar of Raman Maharshi before my eyes. I can look at the lighting. I can see this laptop. I can see a cushion around myself, and I can see my speaker. So the intention is, when we look at each of these stimuli, we say them aloud or to ourselves, but we mention them. We make a mention of it. Okay. Then coming to 4. So now we talk about 4 things that we can feel through our hands, or our skin. 4 textures that we can feel. Okay, so yeah, I can feel this laptop table. It's quite sturdy. I can feel my pillow. It's very soft. I can feel my cotton clothing. It's quite gentle and pleasant. And I can feel the texture of my water bottle. So 4 things that we can feel from our hands or our skin. Then 5 and 4 are done. Now three things that we can hear from our ears right now. 3 auditory stimuli that we can hear. I think you can hear my voice. Yeah. um, I can also listen to the sound of the AC here, and probably the sound of cars moving outside the home. You can hear the sounds of the birds going back to their children, towards their nests. Anything, it could be anything, but try to be mindful and identify those things that you can see. Then come back to your sense of smell and your sense of taste. So you mentioned 2 things that you can smell and 1 thing that you can taste, right? I hope this made sense to everyone. This did. So this technique is called the 5 4 3 2 1 technique. It's a technique on grounding. And it, anytime you feel overwhelmed, or anytime you feel very frustrated or very anxious, and you feel you do not have anything to do, you don't know what to do, there's a lot of worry, you can and you're constantly preoccupied with thoughts of the future or the past, you at least just calm yourself down. And an ideal and a good practice to do this is to do it every day. Let's not wait for an anxious moment to fall upon us for us to try this technique. Let's try imbibing it as a daily habit. So before bedtime or early morning after waking up is an ideal time to have such kind of practices, right? So when you wake up in the morning, you can definitely try this and see for yourself. And I'll be sharing my email, and you can give me a feedback if this works for you, right? So let's move ahead. So this was called the 5 4 3 2 1 technique. Okay. Yeah. So now we're talking about few more quick hacks that that we've heard from our parents almost all the time, and our grandparents and the previous generations. And even if we look at our scriptures, we've seen a lot of mention about these things. So there's nothing new about it, but it really helps, as if we hear it from some source constantly, it helps as a reminder. So the first thing that I'd like to share with you, all of you here, is something as basic, as valuable, as important as sunlight. Sun is a source of energy, radiance, light, and life without sun cannot sustain. But sun actually regulates a certain hormone in our body, which is called melatonin, which is very important to maintain circadian rhythm. It's a rhythm that regulates our sleep and waking cycle. So if we have enough melatonin in our body, our sleeping and waking cycle is very normal, it's very regulated. Okay. So for people who have initial issues falling asleep in the night, it's strongly recommended for them to take sunlight, every day, 30 minutes, sit under the sun for 30 minutes every day. Ideally the rising sun, the early morning sun before 8 o'clock. So and that has several benefits. And exposure to sunlight also secretes serotonin. That's also another positive hormone that regulates our mood and our sense of calm and our focus. Okay. Um, Here is an interesting thing that I discovered. A lot of us have used the alarm clock in our life. And you remember that very unpleasant alarm sound, that common traditional alarm sound, which is very, very annoying. So, what I did was, because nowadays, not many of us use that traditional form of alarm clock anymore. We use alarm clocks on our phones, and it's very easy now to personalize the sound or the tone that we'd like to wake up to. So one thing that we can do is, setting our alarm to a pleasant sound, or especially my favorite is a kirtan or a chant. So you do not want a very unpleasant blaring noise inside your ears waking you the first thing when you wake up in the morning. And also it really helps to keep the alarm clock a little away, not exactly not below your pillow or not on the bedside, so that you do not just keep snoozing it. You have to get up to turn it off. So that is one thing which can help you waking up early in the morning. And another thing, which is very commonsensical, is if you want to wake up early in the morning, please end the previous day earlier, right? So sleep early in the previous night to wake up early in the next morning. This is very common sense. We cannot expect to wake up 5 a.m. in the morning if we are sleeping at 12 or 1 um, in after the midnight. That's very difficult and it's not healthy either. So if you want to wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, please try wrapping up your day by 10 p.m. And I know it's not possible for a lot of us who are working and who are traveling, and I'm not talking a very ideal state that you have to, you must. The idea is to do whatever pleases you and whatever you can comfortably include or imbibe in your in your routine. Okay. So and sleeping the previous day is possible when you have an early dinner, when you log off digital devices, at least an hour or 2 hours before, and spend more quality time with your loved ones, talk to them, or read something really light and uplifting or nourishing. I find reading spiritual literature really very ideal before bedtime, or during the evening. That's the best literature to savor or read, and not a very sensationalizing kind of a literature. So here is a well-being hack. Try waking up a little earlier than you normally do every day. So tomorrow morning, when you get up, so if you got up at 7 a.m. in the morning every day, try getting up at 6:45 or 6:50. That's all. Just go back 5 minutes or 10 minutes earlier. Okay. Do not set a very high deadline of I have to wake up 2 hours early than my regular routine. Start going backwards slowly, and you will be able to find a time where you are able to comfortably wake up. Okay. So wake up a little earlier than you normally do, and try to be among nature. If it's possible, you have access to lawn or a garden, please go walk up over there, look at the sunrise, feel the breeze, listen to the songs of the birds. It's very beautiful and pleasant, and it's very good for your hormones, good for your mental health. Take a stroll in the lawns, look at the sky, even hug trees if possible. Touch that soil, feel that texture from your hands. It'll really feel very good. I'm sure a lot of us who are staying in the ashrams or who have access to that kind of nature are already aware of the benefit that it has on our emotional and mental health. But even those of us living in metropolitan cities, whenever we have access to nature, it really feels beautiful, right? And you remember I was telling about the people who had shared what is their ideal state, what is the best state that they would like to visualize. Everyone has had nature as the most common element. Somebody was visualizing paddy fields in a distant village in West Bengal. Someone was visualizing going to the beaches with his loved ones, with his family. Someone was visualizing going to the mountains. but nature is always there. Someone is thinking about the rainbow or the sun or the stars or the moon, but nature is always there whenever we ask people to visualize their happiest or the most ideal self. What is that state that makes you feel most happy and joyful and stress free? And you'll hear this answer that people mention, my feet is on the water waves and the waves are touching my feet and I feel so calm, or I'm looking at the moon and it's so serene. And yeah, visualizing sitting by the sea and feeling that salty air on my lips, Reti ma'am, that's very well said. So I hope all of you can resonate that being amidst nature makes you feel very positive, uplifting, and emotionally very fit. So that's one hack, which is common sense, which all of you know about, and there's no rocket science about it, right? Let's move on to some of the other techniques. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So because we talked about waking up early in the morning, I thought it was very important to talk about how to sleep the night before, right? So our sleep regulates our level of cortisol, and it secretes melatonin. Cortisol, if you remember, it's a stress hormone. And sleep also consolidates memory, in that, sleep gives you a state of incubation. And that incubation is very important for you to be able to make major decisions in your life. Okay, even everyday decisions. So a lack of sleep, you might have noticed that whenever you have compromised on your sleep, your state of stress, anger has worsened. Symptoms of mental, they all actually, you don't feel your healthiest self when you miss out on your sleep, right? Okay. So what's the well-being hack out here? I already talked about it in the previous slide, but let me get back to this reminder again. Please start unwinding sooner. When it's evening, really start unwinding. Evenings are um not actually for merrymaking, but to the contrary, of course, because we have access to electricity and light and all. We are using our evenings differently, but nature had it that by sunset we must have completed all the daily chores, all our activities, and we should be unwinding because the nature is unwinding as well at this time. So have a very light early dinner. um, Take a break from the digital world if possible, if your work permits. Okay. Then what do you do with that time? Because you do have time and you don't know what to do with it without your digital interface. Talk to real people if you have access to them. Okay. And if you do not have, then then use your digital device to interact with them, or read positive or spiritual books. For me, spiritual books work really well, but if you like self-help books or anything that makes you feel more relaxed, please try reading that. You can try journaling as well. And another thing, very important thing, please keep your sleeping space clutter free. That makes it more inviting for you to have healthy sleep, and ensure that your sheets are changed regularly, and that they are of natural cotton fabrics. You have well ventilated room, your lights are dim when you go to bed. All of these very commonsensical ergonomic aspects with respect to sleep. Okay. Let me, yeah, are you with me? Do I make sense? I do, right? Yeah. Okay. And because we talked about clutter, right? Removing clutter from our space, our visual space. The next point is talking about clutter. And that is, you'll be really surprised that if you feel very angry, if you feel like if you had a fight with your partner, or it's not something that I'm wishing, but I'm just telling, if you at all came to that kind of a situation, the best thing to do is, mind you, the best thing to do is cleaning your cupboard or washing the dishes or brooming your room, or literally, actually it really works, because it helps you channelize your energy in a very positive direction, in a very constructive direction. When you're anxious or angry from inside, there is a lot of unused unproductive energy inside you. And using it to fold clothes or doing basic chores, gives you an outlet. Okay. So the next point, the next hack that we're talking about is, yeah, let's come to this, yeah, is decluttering our space. Okay. And so you might have noticed sometimes, all of us are not very organized. Almost 24 hours a day we have presentations to make, we have meetings, we have other works, we have probably a family to look after, and it's not possible every day to be perfect in every single aspect. But have you noticed that when there's a lot of overwhelming clutter around yourself, you really start feeling very, very more annoyed, more irritated, more overwhelmed, right? And you're not even able to focus on other things that need your attention and care, right? So clutter increases the cortisol. Remember, this hormone is coming again and again. This is the stress hormone. It increases cortisol in our body, which leads to more stress. So more clutter, more cortisol, more stress. Clutter in our space, and probably it's like a very symbolic thing. Clutter around us as a material space is symbolic of inner clutter as well. It makes us feel very overwhelmed from the inside. This works for me. Okay. And also clutter in our digital life, too much of random mindless social media, random feeds, looking at people, somebody going on a vacation, somebody doing this, posting those kind of pictures. And if it makes me feel, oh my god, what am I doing here in my home, why am I not going on holidays, those kind of things. So that's a lot of unnecessary clutter that I'm inviting in my life. Okay. That overwhelms me. Okay. So what's the hack out here? The first one is, whenever you feel frustrated, please, you can take a note of this. Whenever you feel frustrated, irritated, or angry, try arranging your wardrobe. Take out all the clothes, or probably a jewelry box, or this is for women. But probably take out your books, dust them, and put them back. And you did something very constructive. आपका घर भी साफ हो गया और आपका गुस्सा भी निकल गया. It's a win-win for both sides. Wash dishes. I try doing this, and this really works very well for me. Also, periodically declutter your digital space. Monitor who are your influences, who are you watching, or looking at, or following on your social media. And ensure that everything that you own, every of your belonging in the home, has a place. you know if if you have too much that does not have a space, probably you have too much of things that you own, right, that you do not need. So donate it to someone, and see why you're keeping it. Probably it's a sentimental value. Probably you thought that you might use it, but it's been 1 year or 2 years and you've not used it. And chances are that if you've not used something for a year, you probably might not use it, right? So give it to someone who might be in greater need, and when you need it, you will have access. You'll be able to buy it or order it from Amazon, or probably borrow it from someone. Or maybe tell the same person that you gave it to, when I need it, I'm going to take this from you. Okay, please give it to me for a day. That's possible, right? What's the point of hoarding so much? So hoarding physical clutter in our lives is symbolic of holding on to a lot of unwanted emotions within us. Also to holding on to relationships that do not serve us. Okay. So our behavior outside is a manifestation of how we feel from the inside. Okay. Let's get back. I hope I'm making some sense. Okay. So this was on decluttering. Yeah, another hack, I think actually Bijlani sir says it the best, but I'll just try to make a very small attempt here. Breathing is very basic, and breathing is something that we do not often consciously do. It's just happening to us, and we're very lucky that it's happening to us, right? But when we feel very anxious, when we feel very, very agitated about something, okay, when we feel very, very fumed, slowing down our breath, taking a few deeper breaths can help us feel more calm. You might have tried this. You might have tried this with your child. When your child is very angry or throwing tantrums, you tell them, beta, sit, relax, take a deep breath, take one more deep breath, and we keep telling the child, 3 4 times. Okay. And the child is calmer, and then we ask the child what happened, what's the matter, and the child is able to talk in a more sensible manner. It works with us as well. And when we feel low, in that case, vigorous breathing, like Kapal Bhati, can fill us, or fill us with more oxygen, with more energy, and boost our spirit. Okay. So breathing also aids in the secretion of dopamine, adrenaline, and endorphin. These are all feel good hormones. And I already said this. The hack out here is, whenever you need to slow down and relax, go for slow and deep breathing. Probably anulom vilom might work. The breathing from one nostril, and then inhaling and exhaling from alternate nostrils. And when you need more energy and flow of oxygen, when you want to feel more pumped up, then vigorous rhythmic breathing like Kapal Bhati might work for you. So this is a hack out here that you can leverage your breathing into regulating your emotion. How incredible is that, right? Okay. Another one out here is, because we've heard better things about this in the years courses, and Bijlani sir teaches us it much better than me. But an important thing to understand is, sometimes you might have noticed that you feel very low and you don't know why. And uh, and then you figure out that just drinking a glass of water made you feel better, right? So you probably were dehydrated, and being more dehydrated worsens our mood or leads to anxiety and depression. Okay. So the hack out here is, whenever you feel low, either drink a glass of water or eat something sweet like a dry fruit laddu. That's a healthier version. Eat dark chocolate. Okay. Also try to eat food which is minimally processed and more close to nature. And if you do have a plan to order something from Swiggy or Zomato, try to have a bowl of fresh fruits or salad a little earlier than that, so that you do not binge or you do not overeat. Okay. And also, for a week, if you want to mindfully curate your food habits for a week, take a log of how eating every food is making you feel. And at the end of the week, when you look at it, it's like a nice reflection for you. Okay, this worked for me, this did not work for me. Okay. Also, cooking and dining with your loved ones, few times a week really works very well. The next part out here is, there's this hormone called oxytocin, and it is secreted when we feel loved. So remember, whenever you are with your loved one, you feel very happy, right? Time just flies. And also, when you're with your friends, spending time with your friends, you really feel good hormones. So that's the oxytocin secreting at that time. So the hack out here is, if you feel low sometime, or if you need a sudden burst of energy at that time, instantly hug your child, if you have access to the child, and if the child consents to be hugged. Okay. Also, volunteer. Do something for people who cannot give back to you or do anything for you. That instantly gives you a strong sense of self-esteem, and also lessens your loneliness and depression. Do one random act of kindness, or express your gratitude to someone. Okay. And the last one out here is, um, listening to music. You might be aware that listening to different kinds of music can have different effects on our mood and emotion. And listening to music also secretes all of these positive hormones like dopamine and oxytocin, and reduces cortisol. And there is a certain genre of music which is called ambient music, which is music of beats 80 to lesser, 80 bpm or lesser, 60 to 80 bpm music, instrumental, relaxed, and it does not have a tempo or a rhythm to it. Listening to that kind of music secretes alpha waves inside our brain, which makes us feel very relaxed and very calm. And if you need an energy boost, if you're feeling very bored and you want to feel pepped up, listen to an upbeat music of 100 um, or more beats per minute. Okay. I will share more about it if you'd like to hear more about it, or we can have a separate session on music and its various benefits on our mental health. Okay. Here are a few ways with which you can enjoy music. Listen to a music playlist, play a musical instrument. There are lots of applications on the phone that we can have access to. Sing alone, sing by yourself, and don't worry if somebody's judging you or whether you have a good voice or not. Just singing is very, very soothing, very relaxing. It's a form of self-expression. Sing together, chant in a group, okay, or watch a concert. So these are different ways in which you can include music in your life. And finally, this is a link to my email address and social media. Um, and I will put up individual link if you would like to in the chat box as well. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I did not overstay my time out here. I was asked to wrap up by 6:40, and yeah, 6:40 by my watch. Yeah. Okay, so over to you, Arunima. Thank you so much. Very grateful to all of you for being here and listening to me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Richa. And yes, you wrapped up timely, and we have a lot of time for the questions. And I hope we get questions and feedbacks. And it was a very helpful session, I'm sure. And actually, literally simple hacks, which was the title. So thank you so much. Participants, any one of you have any questions, please unmute yourself, raise the hand and unmute yourself, or you can put up in the chat box.
Hello, namaste. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
You talked about the various types of music at different beats, which has got different effect on the psyche. Can you give one or two examples, or have you got some demo for that?
Yes, sir. I can give you. I can give you lots of examples for that. But just for instance, talking about music that makes you feel more relaxed. Um, there is a genre of music called lo-fi, L-O-F-I. Okay, I will be writing it out here. Okay, and so lo-fi music, what it does is there might be a song in an original beat, and when they make a lo-fi version of it, they reduce the beat even more, they make it even slower. Okay, so you might have heard some remixes of songs which make it very, very slow. So lo-fi is one music that can make you feel more relaxed. And also instrumental music, basuri, for instance. So listening to a basuri music on a vilambit tal, on an Indian classical raga, especially Rag Darbari, or Rag Yaman, or Rag Vrindavani Sarang, or Bageshri, or Kafi, so listening to a raga based instrumental music, in fact, the classical musicians, what they do is when they present a concert, they start on a vilambit tal, they start very slow, they warm you up to be able to receive, what they're playing ahead. So listening to vilambit tal, classical music renditions, especially instrumental, when you listen to words, actually you start attaching yourself to the words, you start associating meaning to those words, you start imagining your own life around those lyrics and meaning and all, and you get distracted, and the purpose of that music might not be served as much. But when you listen to an instrumental piece of music, it's just a pure piece of music. So listening to instrumental music can help you feel a lot in flow. I will share a few links here on the chat box as when we end the session, sir, and I hope that will make you
Thank you
um
very much. Thank
yeah,
you very
okay.
much.
And also the upbeat music, I'm sure you might have heard Ed Sheeran's Shape of You, tang 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 tang. I know it's out of place out here to do this, but very upbeat music, very fast beat music. Holi is coming, and you will definitely hear a lot of DJs playing around yourself, and that is the upbeat music I'm talking about, to pep you up or to pump you up. And while, because it's playing in loud blaring sound, it's not very pleasant for us on the DJ. But when we listen to it at a moderate sound, it might actually serve its purpose, to fuel us with energy. Or imagine the music that is played in the gyms. It has heavy beats. the veer ras kind of a music. Shaurya, shur, veer ras ignite karta hai aisa music. So that's the kind of music I was talking about. So I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
We have some positive comments in the chat box. No question as yet. Um, Anyone else, if they have question? Yeah, please go ahead, sir. I can see you raising the hand.
Yes, just to add to the question as well as the answer of Richa, regarding the different genres of music, suppose you want to have create an inner peace. Nowadays, there is a trend to listen to simple gradation of music, like river flowing, flow of river, this, that sound, or the sound of rain. Okay, just could be a monochrome, but if you want to bring your mind to restful conditions, like that kind of music sometimes help. Or even Celtic music, very good music, for example, in case to get a meditative feeling, Celtic music really helps. And as you said, other genres like flute, everything. uh, and if you want to come to a joyful, sudden jump up mode, pump up music is very good. Pump up music are there, just rhythmic beat and all that. You feel happy and all that. Two, three things which I wanted to add is that, among these different hormones like, endorphin or serotonin or dopamine, all these three except oxytocin, you can get by exercise. Exercise is the major thing with which you can gain all these three. Oxytocin, of course, it comes with only bonding. Maybe you are a member of Rotary Club or some social organization, NGOs, or you have friendship forums and all that. This gives oxytocin, basically. Romantic relationships definitely gives a lot of boosting of oxytocin. This is another thing. One of the longest studies, if I recollect correctly, is that there was a study in Harvard which stressed something like 50, 60 years of studying people who have passed out from that institution, how they lived, what created real happiness. And the study conclusion was it is good relationship that created happiness. Good relationship is the key to happiness, whether it is friendship or matrimony or whatever it is. This was, I just thought to highlight this one study. It's a very important study that was done, taking a lot of time period by researchers. Thank you, Richard. It was a very well structured, illuminating talk and very useful. You completed in time also. Thank you.
Thank you, PGR. Those were very interesting insights that you brought. And sir, I have added 2 links. I've added one link to a YouTube channel by Relax Daily. It has calming piano music and very, very nice. Even upbeat music is something that can take you to a state of flow. It's all instrumental. So please try listening to that. And the second link is a Rag Darbari by Pandit Ronu Majumdar. Do listen to this. It's very calming. Both links are some of my favorites, and I listen to these almost every day. And also, as PGR mentioned, listening to nature sounds, just simply type on YouTube, rain sounds or sounds of waterfall, ocean breeze, sounds of birds, the cackling wood sound by the fire side. These are very, very calming and healing sounds, and they really work beautifully. I've tried listening to all of these, and they have very powerful effects on our sense of well-being. Yeah. Okay. Arunima.
Yeah. Anyone else has a question? Please put up in the chat box or you can ask yourself. Yeah, Omar, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, Richa, thank you very much. I'm sorry I joined in very late. I just want to add for most of you who might have heard Richa for the first time. Richa, nature sounds, of course, they do have the effect that they have on us different. But I would strongly recommend everybody to please listen to Richa. I think her voice and her notes and the kind of a general conversation with Richa itself has a lot of benefit as a friend, and I'm sure everybody must have heard her today. So that's just to add on, nothing else. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that, Omar. Yes, please go ahead, unmute yourself. I can see you raising the hand. Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Hi, my name is Sumit, and I would like to second Umar on that. You know what he said about Richa's music? It's like amazing. If you get an opportunity to listen to it, it's like really soothing. Trust me on that. And there's one more thing would like to add. This is something I've just come across. Tongue drum. If you can hear this. And the best part about this tongue drum is you need not have anyone teaching you. You know, you don't have to go with any note or anything. You can just tap on it and you would get a very soothing sound. So you can consider yourself to be a musician also if you play that without actually being a musician. And thank you so much, Richa.
Thank you, sir. Participants, anyone has a question to ask, please go ahead. Otherwise, then I'll ask Dr. Bislani to please share his views. Sir, please.
Thank you, Arunima. That was a talk that was one of the most educative and at the same time pleasant talks, a real experience. And I would just ditto what some of the speakers just said, some of the participants just said, that listening to you itself has such a calming and soothing effect. And I'm sure music will have more of it. I'll start with a question and then make a few comments. The question is about, you said that the fear of speaking in public or public speaking is the number one fear, even more than the fear of death. Is it that the intensity of the fear is more? It's just that if you say ask a number of people, the frequency with which people say that they are afraid of speaking in public is greater than the number of people who say that they are afraid of death.
That's a very interesting question. And actually, I was a member of the Toastmasters International, and that's a public speaking forum. And that's where probably people joked that, coming on the stage is a very jittery experience for everyone. I mean, everybody gets an experience to come on the stage and see for themselves that how public speaking can be very dreadful, but nobody on the deathbed can be out there and come back and tell us how scary that is. Right? So probably it's the frequency, it's the number of people talking about how they have perceived public speaking as very scary or dreadful since their school days, standing in front of the teacher and the class, and the fear of being judged or being mocked at by classmates or friends, and forgetting and being booed by people. So I think it's from that context. Of course, the fear of death is very real, and that is a universal truth, and it will be happening to every one of us. But accepting it and knowing the inevitability of it might reduce the fear that we might have with respect to death. I'm
So
not
on this,
answering. It's a rhetoric, actually, that you
it
asked.
just confirms sort of the intuitive feeling that it is probably the frequency. And
Yes.
that, I think, depends upon the fact that most of us have sometime or the other faced this challenge of speaking in front of a group of people.
Yes.
Whereas all of us face the possibility of death, but then most of the time, most of us consider it's just something very remote and therefore remain unmindful of it, and therefore doesn't cause the same degree of stress. And if I may just expand a little on it, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, there's a sutra, avidya, asmita, ragadvesh, abhinivesha, klesha. That is the root cause of kleshas or conflict is or stress is avidya, that is ignorance of the deeper truths of existence. And the last one in that is abhinivesha, which is generally translated as fear of death, which also, of course, is rooted in ignorance. But at the same time, one of the translations of abhinivesha is fear of change. And death is one of those changes which all of us are sure to face one day, and that is why it is translated as fear of death. But then if we were to take a more liberal meaning of just fear of change, then public speaking is also one of those changes, which we face often enough to be afraid of it, and at the same time, not so often as to not consider it a change. Most of the time, we are not speaking in public. We're not speaking in a group of people, to a group of people, and therefore it is a change. So it's fear of change rather than anything else. So probably one can fit it also into that context. Now, after that question, let me just make a few comments that I've been noting down. Firstly, I mean, I must really say that your title or your context or your personality or whatever, or maybe some mysterious forces which are beyond any explanation, invited a very large number of participants. At one point, I noticed the number of participants had gone to 37, which is a very large number by the standards of Yes Talks. And I'm sure many more will watch the recording and benefit from it. Secondly, you started with a slide which talked about what mental well-being means to different people. That I think was very comprehensive and just about sums up most of the things which we have in mind when we are thinking of well-being. So instead of adding more to it, because that is the analytic way of looking at things, I started looking at it from the opposite point of view. Can we synthesize all of them into a single indicator of well-being? It is possible to synthesize. And what I felt was that one thing that unites all those features of what we consider mental well-being is unification of the person, particularly unification of the mind with our deepest self, or unification of the surface mind with the soul. So if we anchor our mind to the soul, then that gives us the best sense of well-being, because the soul that is always free of all the desires and ambitions and anger and jealousy and everything that disturbs our sense of well-being, and therefore unless this volatile mind, rather one might say volatile emotions and the vacillating intellect, unless these are anchored to the soul, we will not have a sense of well-being. So I thought that is what would unite all this. And then I talked about clutter, and the way you looked at it was really very innovative, not just outer clutter in the physical space, but also decluttering the digital devices, emotions, relationships, and so on. So clutter can have a very wide meaning, and certainly clutter stress is a very real fact, and most of us keep resisting it, sometimes because we don't have time, and sometimes because we are too sentimentally attached to many things that we want to just retain, and sometimes out of politeness. You said relationships that don't serve us anymore, we continue with them as a sort of polite behavior. So for one reason or the other, we are rather resistant to declutter. And the mother has said something interesting in relation to this, that if you want to see how well organized a person is in his mind, just open his drawer and see how well organized it is. So the mind and the physical space do have a close relationship. But of course, there's something like a benign clutter, which is the type of clutter that Sri Aurobindo had on his table. Why I would call this benign clutter is because it was cluttered, but then within that clutter, he knew exactly where something was. So one can be organized. Some people can have such a sharp mind as to be organized in spite of what looks to others as clutter. And when it came to music, I started thinking that, you talked about the five senses. And two of the senses which I think affect our sense of well-being the most are the visual and the auditory ones. And since we can't be at a scenic spot all the time, and we can't be listening to the flow of river or the chirping birds all the time, at least we can imagine to be there. No, that's what visualization is about, because close your eyes and then we create a picture which it transports the person to a scenic spot. So that is visualization. The music that we are playing, which imitates the sound of, say, birds or the river, is doing the same in the auditory sphere. So we can't be at such places all the time. We can't be listening to these pleasant sounds all the time, but we can create a situation in which it seems as if we are, and that itself is very relaxing. So it corresponds to sort of visualization. That's what I felt. And last but not least, you have so many qualities and you are sort of an expert in so many fields that I'm sure we would like to have you again and again and frequently enough. And certainly a session on music is called for. The session on music will be music to all our ears, and not only on the net through these online sessions, which have their importance because then you can reach people anywhere in the world, but also live sessions in the ashram, in Sunday satsangs, or in some bhajan sandhya. So we would like to look forward to that also. So thank you again for this experience, and we wish we had discovered you earlier. The YES project has been around for more than a year, and it took us so long. That just reminds me of that advertisement of Promise toothpaste. You might be too young to remember it. Maybe it was before even you were born. There was the Promise toothpaste was one of the first ones to sort of introduce an Indian element in toothpaste. Before that, Colgate ruled the roost. But then they came up with a toothpaste made in India with clove, just one item, which is good for teeth. And in that advertisement, what they said was that this has clove, which helps your teeth. And then at the end of the ad, the lady would say, "Ye toothpaste pehle kyun nahi aaya?" So, मैं पहले क्यों नहीं discover किया?
Thank you, sir. Richard, do you have anything to add?
After Sir has said, I think there's nothing more that I can say. I'm speechless. I feel blessed. I really feel honored with all the love and warmth and nice comments from everyone and all the receptivity. I'm so happy that you liked the topic that we chose, and it's just the beginning, and we look forward to having more such sessions ahead. Yeah, so I feel very welcomed with this. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Arunima.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. We have some very lovely comments in the chat box. I'm sure you would be following those. And
Yes, Arunima, in the recording, you will have the chat. So when you save the recording, save the chat also.
sure, sir.
So that
Sure.
we can look at it again.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Thank you.
I thank all the participants for joining us today and being with us. To the newer participants, I would like to inform that we have these guest talks on different subjects, different topics, and various speakers. We have experts. On every Saturday, we have these talks at 6 p.m. IST. Do join again. And thank you so much for being with us today. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.